Speakers are invited to speak from the podium and address the city council. Speakers are limited to 5 minutes unless additional time is needed for translation. Please state your name and address for the record. At this time, public comment is open. Hearing none, seeing none, public comment is closed. We have one item on our special docket this evening. That is our discussion on the local sales tax referendum, and I'm going to hand it over to you, City Manager.
Yes, so council, as part of looking forward and strategic planning, staff have been prepping a 10-year look on finances for the city, factoring in revenue sources, expenses, and everything else that would normally hit our budget. I do want to emphasize we've done this not because the city is in kind of a bad budgetary place. We're not. The city is in a very healthy budgetary place. However, looking forward with the market stressors that are going to be highlighted by Mike and Roger, we just want to bring to your attention why we're looking at additional revenue sources and kind of how that goes. Part of this, and I want to be very clear on this, while this is a sales tax, we're looking at revenue workshop for today. Council does not have the authority to simply approve a sales tax.
Right.
Council can approve a measure to go on, and that measure is then voted by the citizens at that point. Before we get to all of that, where we're looking and where Mike is going to push this is we're looking at doing some local research, getting some input, and that's where the original contract was proposed. With that being said, Mike, you want to kick us off?
Yes, good afternoon, Honorable Mayor, members of the Chapter City Council, Michael James with the City Manager's Office. When preparing for the discussion today, staff confirmed, as the city manager pointed out, that the city's current financial position remains strong, but we're increasingly aware of risks and market stressors that will negatively impact our position unless we take proactive steps soon. So some specific areas of concern include a decline in revenue through sales taxes and tax agreements. And there's the rapid population growth, which impacts the workloads of staff. It increases the need to hire more staff. And of course, rapid growth also leads to increased traffic and congestion. What's really concerning in recent months is High-Speed Rail Authority's recent pitch to change the terms of a settlement agreement with the city, focusing on a new design that will potentially devastate not just the quality of life in the core city, but also the businesses that generate revenue for the cities. So these risks and stressors impact not just the existing service levels, but expanded service commitments that we're looking to in the future, including Parks and Recreation, notably when the Aquatic Center is operating at full capacity. For public safety, we're expected to maintain high levels of police service. And as you may recall, we're looking into the possibility of a city-operated fire department in the coming months. For roads and infrastructure, it's obvious that our roads need traffic flow and safety improvements that can't wait much longer. So the main question for us as a city and as a community is how can the city secure additional revenues that are justifiable, equitable, and sustainable?
Real quick, for the record, to my understanding, High-Speed Rail coming in, there are some large sales tax producers who are considering not reopening if indeed High-Speed Rail does go through their property. That is an accurate statement?
Yeah. Sorry, to highlight, there are, tax information, of course, is confidential.
Absolutely.
However, 3 of our top 10 tax remitters, and Roger has a really good graph that shows their market share of our tax revenue, are High-Speed Rail impacted. One of those has a license that's actually tied to the area, so they'd still have to operate in this area. However, 2 of them could easily consolidate and locate to other Central Valley cities, and we know one of them is actually looking actively. Unfortunately, these are 3 of our top 10 tax remitters. So bulk of city sales tax revenue is coming from these entities.
Yeah, my purpose in wanting to make that known verbally was just for the fact that though High-Speed Rail has tooted their horn, pun intended, that what they're doing is a financial increase and it helps with economic development throughout the cities. That's a very opposite of what they're doing. And in fact, it is making things very difficult, especially for a city like us when High-Speed Rail goes directly through us. So I just want to make sure that was known.
Thank you for that, Mayor. The sources of revenue that staff have reviewed and informally discussed with the council to date mostly center on a local sales tax or community facilities districts or CFDs. So this slide kind of outlines some key differences and considerations. Sales taxes, whether they're general or targeting certain services or initiatives, are still intended to have citywide benefits and to support general fund stability. The pros or advantages of sales taxes are that they can be levied broadly, meaning that residents and visitors doing business in the city are contributing. And it doesn't require additional city staff or resources generally to manage a local sales tax. And there would be close to immediate benefits once they're in effect. Now, the major disadvantage with the local sales tax is similar to the general sales tax that we benefit from now, is that it's susceptible to economic fluctuations. For CFDs, those are assessed and collected through property taxes. And they generally are practical when we set them up for new developments because they fund infrastructure and service commitments that come with those new developments. Some pros of CFDs are they're equitable for beneficiaries if they're tied to a specific service or project. And you could leverage them to bond for large-scale infrastructure projects. And if they're maintained properly, operated properly, the revenues can be viewed as more stable than sales tax. For the major disadvantages of property taxes are they're still property taxes. You're increasing property taxes on at least some of our residents and businesses. Taxes that are can be viewed as less visible to residents and businesses because they only really know about them if they're paying attention to their property tax bill versus a sales tax, which you see on a receipt for a transaction. And as I mentioned, CFDs are generally restricted to certain areas. They're not citywide. And there would be annual reporting with CFDs that'll certainly increase the need to hire additional staff. And if you're operating a large-scale CFD, the city is exposed to potential legal challenges, even if it's perceived that if we're funding operations beyond the designated areas. Finally, as a finance director, I think can attest that realizing the revenues that come with property taxes can take much longer to realize than a local sales tax because a property tax is dependent upon new development generating the revenue that is necessary. With that, I'm going to hand, unless you have some immediate questions, I'm going to hand off the next few slides to Mr. Sanchez.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members, Finance Director Roger Sanchez. So I'd like to share the historical information on the last 15 years on sales taxes by category. On the orange, you see the business to business, blue is construction, green is food products, general retail, and miscellaneous, and you can see on the dark green on transportation. This excludes the county pool. What I'd like to bring to your attention is that what if we were to look at only the sales taxes without the top 8 producers? This is what it would look like. The pink area, that shaded area on the bottom, that would be the normal that we would see on sales taxes without the remainder of the top 8 producers. That would be the normal. And that's a significant, we are highly dependent on a few companies. Now, as it was mentioned, there's a couple of them that are part of the top producers in the core, which would be impacted by the high speed. So this is the, as you can see, the 12.08, so that was for the fiscal year 24. And there's a decrease on the most recent 24-25 fiscal year. Now, this summary provides an insight of what is the sales tax, who gets the money for the sales tax. For every $100, there's $7.25 that is taxed here in Shafter. However, the city of Shafter only sees 1%. The rest of it goes to the state and it gets distributed. So the 1% through the local Bradley Burns, that for every $100, like I said, we get $1. And what this information provides is on the bottom section that 98% of Kern County has a rate of 8.25 or higher. So Shafter is the only agency that we're aware of that has below, that is at 2.5. 75% of California cities and counties has a sales tax above 8.25%. And as I mentioned, Shafter is the sole local agency in Kern County using the 7.25 rate. So out of the estimated $4 million, so there's 2 million would be impact the residents, and what would be the impact by household? That would be an annual impact of $367 again per year. Per month, that translates to about $31 per month or $1 per day. That would be what we estimate the average would be if we were to do a 1% sales tax. So I would like to share a scenario. If we can share. Just one moment, please. I think I shared the wrong one. Here we go. So what this is a workbook that has general fund revenues projections. So at the left side, it includes the historical actuals. The top blue represents the revenues that we've collected in the past in general fund. The red line represents the operating expenses. And the orange bar represents the operating expenses. So if I were to include the capital expenses, that is equipment, fleet, and CIP, then we can see there's an additional bar at the top that includes the capital expenses. So in order for us to replace vehicles and to do local matching for capital projects, we need that extra money, one-time expenses. This is how we're able to match for the swimming pool, for the PD substation, and the fleet replacements. So we were adding that. Now, going forward, that's the shaded green on the right side. And as you can see, once we add the capital projects, we can kind of see that there's a deficiency going towards the future. Now, this is assuming that we have an increase of two employees per year for a total of 20 employees in 10 years. Obviously, we can change the assumptions, and this is the purpose of this workbook. That let's say that we only add one employee, then it changes the outlook. So we also know that property taxes can go higher than the 4%. I'm going modest somewhat on the sales taxes. So if we assume that we have a 6% on the property taxes, we have a slight improvement on that. But what would it look like if we add a sales tax? If we add that 1% that I was discussing, then that's what it would look like. At that point, we can see going into the future, the revenues can meet the expenses. And also, there's also the Williams-Sonoma case where there's the risk. What would happen if we were to lose that component? So if we were to remove the Williams-Sonoma, then we get a reduction going forward as well. So this is what this model tries to do is look at different pieces of information and, you know, and if we were to add 3 employees at an average, then we can see how it would look like going forward. So this is meant to be interactive, and again, without it, it's just, we can see that in a few years, it's difficult to maintain the level of services that we're accustomed to. Keeping in mind that we've also made commitments on, we already hire additional personnel in the police department. We also have a lot of employees who are in the mid-range, meaning they still have step increases, and this model attempts to account for those things. So that's what we're looking at into the future, this type of with this information. So with that, I don't know if you have questions or if you have any comments on this.
I have a question. Is this taking into consideration? I'm sorry. Is this taking into consideration the possible loss of the tax-paying companies due to high-speed rail? Is that factored in this?
So no, this is assuming that we continue as going forward. So you're correct. This could be a slightly. Are you talking about the high-speed rail?
Yeah.
Yeah, this could get slightly worse if we were to lose those 2 components, and especially without the additional sales tax.
Well,
And
I have a question.
you know, and excuse me, to answer back, I do concur with the comments that Kamal made during the high-speed rail meeting. He inferred about $1 million or in excess of impact. I would agree with his statements that sounds reasonable to a potential loss through the high-speed rail.
so would those losing those income tax base companies, is that gonna zero out the increase we're looking at, or are we still gonna be ahead a little bit or behind?
If we were to lose $1 million, and let's assume that we're assuming a $4 million increase, we'll still be able to mitigate that decrease. And also, obviously, we need to be mindful of the Williams-Sonoma. That's a big unknown.
Yeah.
That will almost wipe out the entire increase if we combine the high speed with the decrease in the Williams-Sonoma. That would just keep us afloat. Yeah, that's a good question.
Thank you.
So on what's the percentage, and I don't know if you know this, on the top producers that you're talking about, if they're impacted, let's say HSR comes through or high-speed rail comes through and they're taken out, what's that percentage of that revenue that's gonna be taken out?
So we're still looking with Economic Development Department. We're looking into the details as to the exact impact. We believe that it'll be about $1 million, but in terms of the percentage, they're not as high as, let's say, Williams-Sonoma or Amazon, but they're still among the top 10. So they do provide, once you combine a couple of them, we're talking $600,000 or so per year.
And then also on the CFDs, how many do we currently have? Is there any that are in existence or we don't?
Raj, I'll take this one. So we have multiple in existence right now, and typically they're being used for park infrastructure, streetscapes, stuff like that. And they actually work really well because then that money, which is collected from the residents in that area, is then applied back to that area. Where it gets a little bit tricky on CFDs is when you're trying to do that with like police services or those that are they're not really fixed to an area. An officer can be reassigned somewhere else, so we'd have to work it'd be a more complex setup. You'd have to have a dedicated position that would always be in that area that is paid for by those residents.
I just had one more question. Is there any gain whatsoever with high-speed rail coming through the city? I mean, does the city benefit from it at all?
I can answer that one. From a former economic development guy, There is no benefit to the city of Shafter whatsoever. The only thing we get is temporary jobs benefits. And because of our retail base is so small, most of that leakage is being lost to other communities. So high-speed rail is little to no. Matter of fact, high-speed rail could slap down a station in the middle of Shafter. Because we have no tourism, we have low population, we're low visitation and everything else like that. I doubt we would see a benefit.
Questions on this end? I have a couple. On the property tax assessment, do we have any deals that may have been done years back with the county where we're losing out on property taxes because they've taken, through annexation process, there was some type of deal that may have been created where they're taking, let's say 70% of it versus our 30%. And I'm shooting numbers out, but are we losing out on assessments with the county or other agencies because we should be going back and renegotiating some of these deals?
I can answer that too. So, most of any annexation that's occurred previously has either occurred under a master tax sharing agreement with the county
Mhm.
that was previously agreed. And typically our splits on those were 70% to the county, 30% to the city. We're renegotiating those now for a much more equitable split because Shafter develops a lot faster than most of the other areas. There is also a 2015 agreement. I want to say it's 2015, 2016, as part of a master tax sharing agreement with the county, where for the western side of the wonderful industrial park, we released our interest in sales tax for a higher property tax basis. And the thinking at the time, which was right, is that property tax is typically a lot more stable. It doesn't fluctuate as much as sales tax can. So with regard to that development, on the west side of the WIP, we will not see any sales tax from it. We will only see property tax.
And we can't renegotiate that, huh?
Unfortunately, that property was taken in subject to those agreements and we wouldn't really have a great deal. Marco. Yeah.
So you can't force it. So, from my understanding, so the west side of the WIP.
Microphone? Will you turn your microphone on for me?
Sorry, just for clarification, the west side of the WIP, that'd be going towards the Gossamer Grove area?
No, that'd be the east side of the WIP. The
Oh, west.
currently built out portion's east side, west side.
Okay.
would be the-
This
West of
going,
Santa Fe.
Yeah. west of
Going-
Santa Fe.
that way?
Is it like towards Cherry?
So,
Like that all the way to Cherry, right? That's the.
yeah,
area.
Okay, I see what, okay, now I
The other side of the track.
but there's nothing there, right? So,
Currently, no.
so what sales tax are we gonna get from there?
so, and you gotta remember, most of our large sales tax remitters either come out of the WIP or they're large scale industrial, that are in the core currently. So us giving up those shares, these are the Amazons and everything else that are high tax, sales tax remitters for the city. We have given all that up. So, but property tax on the other side is usually a much more stable source of income. Plus, I'm told that there were some negotiations where the state came down with new restrictions then, and there was some working around that.
So when you say we give up, who do we give it up to?
County.
Also, the county's benefiting that side?
Yeah, we swapped
Okay.
our sales tax portion. They gave us a little bit higher property tax portion.
Okay.
And that's for future revenues, future unrealized revenues. Let me say that
Just
correctly.
on that portion.
Correct, yeah, and that would be west of Santa Fe, which, if you're familiar, they're looking at the EIR process for another 1,600 acres, 800 acres. What am I looking at?
It's probably around there, but there are already 2 projects by right in that area. So, and those would have been potential sales tax remitters.
Okay, on the sales tax distribution, how much say-so do we have in the 1.25% for local public safety fund, local health and social services, and local transportation? Do we have any say-so whatsoever in those? And who does that go to?
It's all state, right?
It's all state, not county?
Are you talking about the summary that it was
The sales
provided?
tax break, yeah, it's a sales tax distribution. I think for you, it would probably be like page 5 on the presentation.
So there is some level of like the local transportation fund, we do get funding for that. We get a portion for that. We also get a small portion for the local public safety fund. And that's it.
So that is something theoretically based on what you said, that does come back to us.
Yes.
Does it come back to us to the same rate that we're seeing here? you know, 0.5, that would be 50 cents for the 100.
It's reallocated the state to the Kerncog based on population, if I'm not mistaken. So it's not 100% that we're getting back.
So sales tax generated here that end up feeding someone else who's not producing those sales taxes.
Right,
Gotcha.
right. So we're the one that goes straight to the general fund, it's really the 1%. The rest of it goes to public transportation or other areas.
And why can we not negotiate any of those? Why can't we? I mean, you're talking about public safety funds. That's a large expense for us here, which would be helpful, as well as transportation funds
Those are all applied pursuant to state methodology.
based on Kerncog though.
Well, they give it to Kerncog, but usually the breakdown's already assessed.
Gotcha.
So, and there has to be a methodology behind it, or else we really, I mean, and the hard part is, you kind of hit it on the head, and I think you're kind of going there. Shafter is the third largest sales tax generator in Kern County. So we are a large scale sales tax generator behind the county and Bakersfield.
I was just gonna say, the only ones in front of us is the county,
Yeah.
1 million total population, and the city of Bakersfield at 400,000 on the population. The third largest is Shafter at 22,000 plus in population, and the per capita.
And I think that's more to play currently on our master sale or the MTA, master tax agreement with the county on our split for future annexation. Because I will tell you, our negotiations have been much different than years in the past, and the split is much more even than it has been previous.
Kern County would struggle without us.
So
And
would
I
Bakersfield.
don't think that's been said enough, and that's unfortunate because we do produce quite a bit, and now here we are having to have this conversation because of uneven distributions. I don't know how much that would fix it, but I do think that would fix it to an extent. Okay. And with CFDs, thank you, by the way, for asking that question. It was a good question. With CFDs moving forward, you did note on here the long-term revenue realization. Have we vetted that out on what that would be?
Yes, so Roger, because he never lets any stone unturned, actually did a little assessment on this. So remember, and if you recall, Roger's slide previously, and how much was it, the annual per year? I would think it was like 367 would impact. our revenue.
On the sales tax, yeah.
So,
Okay, so the sales tax, yeah, you have the
Yeah.
sales tax breakdown, but what about CFD?
so basing it on a CFD, which would apply a direct tax only to residents of $700 per parcel, and our current development rate of 400 units or 400 homes, we're a little above that now. Per year, that would develop $280,000 a year in a CFD. So that's 1 year production. If we add that, you're gonna see an increase based on our annual rate of 280,000 per year, increasing that fund, which will take more than 10 years to even produce half of what the sales tax, and it's 100% on our residents.
Okay, so there's a CFD aspect for the residents. There should be a CFD aspect for
There is no CFD for outside, it's only residents.
the only residents. Can't do any of this for industrial build out, what we're seeing out of the.
We could totally
district.
do that. The hard part is we typically recoup that stuff through development agreements,
Mhm.
as opposed to CFDs, which is a lower administrative burden because we're not having to do resolutions. Realistically, even if we did that, we got to be a little bit careful. Levying a tax like that strictly on businesses, especially the ones that are producing most of our tax revenue at this point, could be a little hostile, could decrease some of our viability as location.
Okay. Excuse me, you wanna lose me real quick, you start talking numbers like we're doing. Okay, the 1.25% sales percent, sales tax that we're asking them for, or we're looking into and talking about, how much will that generate? And then what percentage of that is actually gonna come back to the city?
So if we were to do like a 1%, it would translate to $4 million to the city.
Okay.
No one else would take it, only us, only the city of Shafter.
Per year?
Because, yeah, we were estimated about $4 million per year.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay, so we're asking this increase from the people of the city. and then we're gonna benefit, the city's gonna benefit from it, nobody else is
No one else.
dabbing into this.
Yeah, because the initial 7.5, the vast majority goes to the state. We only keep 1%. If we were to add another 1%, it would only go to the city. And of the $4 million, the real impact to the pockets of the residents that we think is $2 million, because the rest of it is business to business. And again, this would translate to about $1 per day per household. That's what we estimate.
Okay.
So
So these numbers are on a per household.
Yes, per
Thank you.
household.
not to scare you guys either, but in meeting with legal counsel, it was related to us that the county could in fact levy a 1% sales tax over our area without our say-so or without your say-so, which then limits the city's ability because there's a max, and this was very much news to us. There's a max of what can be levied on local sales tax. And usually, I think it was explained, it was about 2%. The county can come in and they can levy that for us, which would then block us from doing our own sales tax. And the county would control that fund.
And that's, yeah, that is, they could in essence beat us to the punch, in
Yeah.
theory.
So as an example, last November, there were a lot of cities in LA County that pursued their sales tax measures because LA County at the same time was pursuing a sales tax for the purpose of funding homeless services. And so many of the cities said, wait a minute, they were doing the analysis, boy, the county's gonna impose this tax for homeless services, but we're only gonna get like, $150,000. That's kind of been the commitment that we're getting from the county, but they're gonna eat up all the remainder of that cushion that's left between the state cap and the overall amount that each city had. And so you saw a lot of cities in LA County do a sales tax measure last November, specifically for the purpose of making sure that, we don't want to have the county eat up that cushion, because we're never going to be able to do it. Once it's gone, the cushion is gone, unless the state somehow increases the total amount again. But that probably isn't going to be likely.
So that doesn't even compare to what our county did just for safety. That was overall tax increase? Yeah, because the other one was safety.
Yeah, because this was a county-wide tax that was also applicable in every city. And so, but the specific purpose was to fund homeless services. So, it ate into that overall cushion that everybody had, to the extent that you had it. There were a few cities that had already taken up the cushion themselves. So we were telling Lance, one of my partners who was the sales tax expert, was saying, we're not sure how the county's going to deal with that, or how the franchise tax board is going to deal with that issue, where a city has already taken all the cap and now you have the county. In many cases, the state did grant special legislation to be able to go above that cap, but we're not sure that it happened here.
Just a question. So Marcos, when you say, the county could come in, add a percent to the sales tax? So then automatic ours would become from 7.25% to 8.25%.
Theoretically. Now the good thing is Kern County traditionally has not done that. It's not LA County. But nevertheless, you can never predict the future. And so, yeah, so if the county imposed a, countywide tax, not just in the unincorporated areas, but like a countywide tax that's going to be, where they're going to be paying for some sort of service that everybody's going to be getting, theoretically, they could eat into that cushion that currently exists that you no longer could take.
And then all that proceeds will go to them.
Yeah, and then usually, at least in the case of LA County, there was a formula how they were going to distribute the money collected back to each city for homeless services. But when the city started doing the analysis, at least with some cities, they're like, well, wait a minute, our residents going to pay, $1.5 million, and you're only going to give us $150,000 in back for our homeless services. So it doesn't make sense for us.
Tell me next steps. What are we looking at?
Yep. We've got a slide to that.
Okay, we've laid out in this slide a potential path forward. As the city manager pointed out, staff previously had a request to authorize community engagement and public outreach services with a consultant on the meeting agenda last month. And that was pulled from the agenda at the mayor's request, so we can have the conversation we're having now. So regardless of whether the city ultimately prefers sales tax, CFD, or other options, the public really needs to have a say in the process, and we feel the best way to gauge public sentiment is to proceed at least with the community engagement over the next couple of months. So as early as your February 3rd meeting, we can revisit awarding the professional services. And if awarded, that community engagement would probably take at least a couple of months, allowing us to come back to you in April with the results of the input that we've received. But the latest we could conceivably have you authorize a ballot initiative, I think, is June. And that allows July through October to use the same consultant to provide the community with fact-based information about what the sales tax initiative is all about. So to be precise, subject to council approval, the potential local sales tax measure can be placed on the November 3rd ballot. And we've already discussed your questions, but we can certainly open up to more questions.
Yeah, the magic date is, what did we say, August the 7th, which is 88 days before the November election. That is the absolute drop dead date, but we are assuming that the Registrar of Voters Office in Kern County probably will not be happy if we submitted a sales tax measure to them on August the 6th, for example. And so what Mike is talking about is sort of June gives us a bit of a cushion to be able to work, because what it would require from the council, if you were willing to go that way, if that were the wishes of the council, is the method that you use is we prepare an ordinance that establishes the tax. That ordinance goes to the council for approval, and for placement on the ballot must be adopted by 4/5 vote. And we have to get it to the county before whatever deadline they have before that August the 7th drop dead date is. Remember, as Lance mentioned, the only thing that you do is you vote to put it on the ballot. You don't actually vote for the measure. But unlike other ordinances, it only takes one reading.
2/3 on a ballot measure, it's a 2/3
Yeah.
vote, or is it
Gen-
50
No,
plus
no,
one?
general, it's simple majority.
Yeah.
So.
From the voters, yeah. Simple majority for general tax. Special tax is 2/3, but to put it on the ballot, the council needs to vote it by 2/3.
So I guess my one last question, so the bottom line, how much would cost?
So, and we're staging it in a general election year. The services for the consultant would be about $30,000. Would be about, I think we discussed 150 or so to put it on the ballot. We took it on a non-general election year. It'd come under the special election, and I think it was 2 or 3 times the cost.
Yeah. Not only that, but to put it on a non-general election where council members are not up for election also, you would have to declare a fiscal emergency by unanimous vote in order to do that. But because it's going on a general election, the only requirement is that it be adopted by 4/5.
So rough 200,000?
Probably gonna be a little bit more than that. I mean, you figure staff time and everything else, we're probably coming in maybe 400,000.
But there's still no chance, no guarantee that it will pass either.
No, there is no guarantee. However, positioning it this way gives it the best opportunity.
We've had other city clients, when they embark on something like this, as part of the engagement that happens, is trying to figure out the right ballot language that might convince the public in terms of, what do you want to say? How should the language be drafted? And so we take our cues in many respects from Lance and the engagement surveys that are going to be going out as to how we're going to craft that language to make sure that it gives it the best possible chance.
Transparency. Your best shot at anything is always honesty and transparency. It's all people care about, and rightfully so. So be as transparent as possible. Okay, so for our next steps from this portion of the meeting would be to say, we'll see it at the next meeting agenda in February.
You guys don't have to take any action. We'll bring the consultant back at the next meeting. We have the contract and everything up for your guys' consideration at that time, and then you guys can proceed with that.
Very good. If no other questions at this time, then I'm going to look to adjourn our special meeting.
I'll make the motion.
One second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Espinoza, second by Mayor Pro Tem Olvera. All those in favor with aye,
Aye.
Aye.
same sign opposed, hearing none.